So I don't have a presentation because I was way too busy with other things leading up to this. I wanted to talk about 3 projects that I worked on over my time doing this. When I approach a project for Larp, what I think about is I start from the experience that I want to give my players or give my fellow players, depending on how we're involved. And I wanted to talk about three things I did. One of them I'll just touch briefly on is also a wearables project. It was actually a costume piece for a PC that I played, who's an Android. And it was a set of lights that flickered across my body with an accelerometer on my arm. This was a buffer game. So when I swung my weapon or squeezed this hand, they would flare up a bit. And playing with that and using, and that let me use that technology, that extra sense, that extra way of reacting to role play with other people, and like getting in someone's face and being upset at them, and also flaring brighter at them, provide an extra level of content, if you will. That was for context, that was an Arduino. I mean, basically everything I do is Arduino based. Then, the second project is a game that I wrote for Intercon J in 2010 called Blackout, which was a crashed spaceship game. It was nominally a Secrets and Powers style game in which we wrote a character web and we had characters and so forth, but the entire gameplay was Arduino based ship props and puzzles and things to find and assembling a maze and sort of, I guess, what you would consider escape room now, but that didn't really exist at the time. Except it was all in the pitch black. So which let me make props that maybe they weren't the most attractive, but they worked and they did the things, and there were lights and then there were buttons and like the little blinking light, and you're like, okay, there's a light, there seems to be buttons here, and what happens if now I get a different pattern. And that game came from a couple of ideas that started it. Obviously, the high-level pitch of it was sort of a computer adventure game / LARP, and I think my initial idea of it was the last moment of the game, which was 2 people on opposite sides of a pitch black room turning keys at exactly the same time in order to get the ship into the final, to be able to take off, and so when I design these things, I design for physicality. I think about what experience I'm trying to give the player, and I think about and how to get there, and how to use technology to get them to that spot. So it's a series of interactions, like waiting for a light to change before you can open a door and see what's on. Like, are you on a planet? What's on the other side of this? Or turning keys, or flipping switches, or physically moving, trying to solve a maze in the dark that is of raised things that will actually light up things as you go. And so designing for that physicality. For that game is a game that could not work without the technology, because that was what the game was, which was great when 20 minutes into the game, controller board for one of the things burned out, and I had to replace it in the pitch black, because I didn't want to turn on the lights and have all the PCs actually see the mazes and the puzzles and where things were hidden around the room.
Yeah, how do you like it?
Yeah, it was rough. I mean, it worked, and I think they had a great time. That also, the other thing that I used in that, which wasn't actually tied in, was sound, and I use that in a number of my games. So the spaceship, the game was divided into 2 conference rooms that were connected. In the spaceship room, which is where everyone started, there was a grumbling, mechanical, slightly wrong, low hum constantly playing, but of course in the dark, so it's just this that just puts everyone slightly on edge. And then in the other space was a jungle space. This was at a convention. It was at a hotel. We had asked the hotel to put all of the fake ficuses in the hotel into that room. So we had a jungle. And I had built a soundtrack of trickling water and wind whistling and whatever that I'd tweaked a little bit so it didn't quite sound right, and then mixed some alien drumming in so that over the course of about an hour, it went from not there to present. And I did get to have the moment when a player turned to another player and to say, "Is that drums? When did that start?" Because I realized they had, and that's just a thing you can do. It's technology, right? And I had done that by mixing this track in Audacity, a few weeks before the game, and I just set it up to go, and it went, and it provided this interesting moment. So that's there's probably 100 more things I could say about that. But the third project I want to talk about is for a campaign game that I actually play right now called Threshold, which is a cyberpunk game. It's a buffer game. It actually runs at the same hotel that Intercon used to run at. And it is a cyberpunk game where we, the PCs, are in possession of two, we'll call them Stargates, teleportation devices. And this is an interesting use of technology because the GMs and players decided to put most of their resources for the game into these two enormous central props, which are 8-foot octagonal gateways that are designed to fit into a dividing wall between conference rooms and have lights on the inside and have a controller box and have a big timer on the top of it. And I don't, if you've played a traditional, what I consider, I guess, a traditional tavern-style buffer game, where you hang out in a space and someone comes and, I need people to go do a thing. We have that sort of gameplay, but that kicks off. But having these gates has changed the rest of how the game plays, so that in order to make this work, we as players, 2 days before the event, get a list of all of the adventures we're going on for the day with an in-character dossier that has been assembled by the intelligence team of what's there, right? And so you know where you're going to be. The adventures kick off by having an NPC come in, press a button that's on the back of the thing, a klaxon goes off, a 5-minute timer starts on this 1.5 inch countdown timer on the top of the thing, counting down. When that goes off, the gate spins up, lights animate, and it opens, and a 30-minute timer starts timing down, and that's how long you have to accomplish whatever it is you need to do in there, negotiate with the terrorists or rescue someone or whatever. And when that slams shut, you're stuck on the other side somewhere else in the world, and you have to figure that out. And obviously, if this technology breaks, they can still run the game. The game doesn't spin to a halt because the lights aren't on. It just enhances it. But the gameplay, the outcome of the effects on the rest of the game, how the game feels, and the intensity of the game, because there's always a countdown timer. Whenever you're off doing something, you always know how many minutes you have left, and once it goes down, it's minutes and seconds. And like 2 days before the first game, I realized I should change this, and once it goes down to under a minute, it switches to seconds and milliseconds. And it's just spinning as fast as you can see it. And the intensity of that last minute, either before the gate opens, when you're all like tensed and ready to go on a thing, or trying to finish the negotiation before the door slams shut, is really a remarkable feeling that we get out of having this technology in the game. And it sort of has pervaded, is that the word? The rest of how the game plays, because and a lot of the rest of the game is more standard. What I consider more standard of props represented by pieces of paper with writing on them, but because we've put the effort into having these two enormous central props that the game is named after, it feels very high tech. It gets a lot of value out of these centralized pieces for the rest of the game.